The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. Jiho Park as he knelt beside the excavation site. His breathing was steady inside the environmental suit, but his heart raced with excitement. After 3 months of digging in the Taeyang Research Station sector, they had finally found something that was not supposed to exist. "Yuna, come look at this," Jiho called to his research partner through the communication device. His voice carried a mix of wonder and disbelief. Dr. Yuna Kim hurried over from her position near the scanning equipment. Her boots crunched softly on the Martian surface as she approached. Through her helmet visor, she could see Jiho pointing at something buried in the excavation pit. "What is it?" she asked, crouching down beside him. Jiho used his brush to carefully clear away more red dirt. Slowly, a smooth, crystalline surface emerged from beneath the soil. It was roughly the size of a human fist, with edges that seemed to bend light in impossible ways. The crystal was not completely transparent, but it was not solid either. Strange patterns moved inside it like liquid mercury trapped in glass. "This should not be here," Yuna whispered. "Mars never had the geological conditions to form crystals like this." Jiho nodded, his scientific mind already working through the possibilities. "The dating scans show this section of soil is over 2 million years old. But look at this thing. It appears almost new." He pointed to the crystal's surface. There were no scratches, no wear marks, no signs of age at all. It sat in the ancient Martian soil as if someone had placed it there yesterday. "Should we contact the main research station?" Yuna asked. "Not yet," Jiho replied. "Let me get some preliminary scans first. We do not want to call in a false alarm." Jiho reached into his equipment pack and pulled out a handheld scanner. He pointed it at the crystal and activated it. The device immediately began making strange noises. Instead of the usual steady beeping, it produced a series of rapid clicks and whistles. "That is not normal," Yuna observed. The scanner's display screen flickered with symbols that neither of them recognized. The readings made no sense. According to the device, the crystal was simultaneously very hot and very cold. It registered as both extremely dense and completely weightless. "The scanner must be broken," Jiho muttered. He turned the device off and on again, but the same impossible readings appeared. Yuna pulled out her own scanner and tried it. The results were identical. Both devices were giving readings that violated the basic laws of physics. "Maybe we should not touch it," she suggested, taking a step back, but Jiho was already reaching toward the crystal. His scientific curiosity had taken over his common sense. "Just a quick examination. I want to see if it feels as smooth as it looks." "Jiho, wait," Yuna called, but it was too late. The moment Jiho's gloved finger made contact with the crystal's surface, everything changed. The crystal began to glow with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The light grew brighter and brighter until both researchers had to close their eyes. When the light faded, Jiho looked down at his hand in shock. The crystal was gone. In its place, his right hand was covered by what appeared to be a second skin made of the same crystalline material. It was perfectly fitted to his hand, covering it from his fingertips to his wrist like a glove. "What happened?" Yuna gasped. "Where did the crystal go?" Jiho held up his transformed hand. The crystalline covering was smooth and warm. He could still move his fingers normally, but now they were covered in the strange material. Inside the crystal coating, those same moving patterns swirled and flowed. "I think it absorbed into my hand," he said, his voice filled with amazement and growing concern. "Can you feel it?" Yuna asked. Jiho flexed his fingers. "Yes, but it does not hurt. It feels like wearing a very thin glove. But I can sense something else. Something inside my head." As he spoke, strange images began flashing through his mind. He saw vast ships moving between stars. He saw beings that were clearly not human, with forms that defied easy description. He saw worlds with purple skies and silver oceans. "What do you see?" Yuna asked, noticing the distant look in Jiho's eyes. "Other places. Other worlds. I think This thing is showing me memories, but they are not my memories. Suddenly, Jiho's mouth opened and sounds came out that were definitely not Korean or English. The syllables were complex and musical, unlike any Earth language either of them had ever heard. "Did you just speak in an alien language?" Yuna asked, in disbelief. Jiho blinked, seeming surprised by his own words. "I do not know what I just said. The words came from somewhere else, like they were put in my mouth." Yuna activated her recording equipment. "We need to document everything that happens. This could be the most important discovery in human history." Over the next hour, they tried various methods to remove the crystalline covering from Jiho's hand. Nothing worked. It seemed to be permanently fused with his skin. But rather than feeling trapped or frightened, Jiho found himself strangely calm about the situation. "It does not want to hurt me," he said. "I can feel its intentions somehow. It is studying me. Studying you for what? I do not know yet. But I can sense that it is very old and very intelligent, and it has been waiting here for a very long time." As they prepared to return to the research station, Jiho noticed something else. His vision seemed sharper than before. He could see details in the Martian landscape that he had never noticed. More importantly, when he looked at Yuna, he could somehow sense her emotions, her fear, her excitement, her concern for him. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly as they walked back toward their transport vehicle. "The beginning of what?" Yuna asked. Jiho looked up at the pale Martian sky, where Earth was visible as a small blue dot. "I think someone has been watching us, watching humanity, and now they want to know what kind of species we really are." The crystalline covering on his hand pulsed gently, as if agreeing with his words. Whatever this device was, whatever it wanted, Jiho knew that his life had just changed forever, and perhaps humanity's future had changed with it. 3 days after the discovery, Jiho found himself sitting in a sterile white room aboard the transport ship heading back to Earth. The journey from Mars to Earth usually took 2 weeks, but this time they were traveling on a military vessel that could make the trip in just 5 days. The crystalline covering on his right hand had not changed, but the visions were becoming stronger and more frequent. Dr. Yuna Kim sat across from him, taking notes on everything he experienced. She had barely slept since they left Mars, too fascinated by what was happening to her research partner. "Tell me about the latest vision," she said, holding her recording device ready. Jiho closed his eyes and let the images flow through his mind. "I see a council chamber, very large, with beings that look nothing like humans. They are discussing something important. Something about evaluation protocols." "Can you understand what they are saying?" "Some of it. The crystal is teaching me their language bit by bit. They call themselves the Kavari Collective. They have been watching many different species across the galaxy for thousands of years." As Jiho spoke, his eyes began to glow with the same soft blue light as the crystal. This had been happening more often during the past few days. Yuna made careful notes about the timing and duration of each episode. "There is something else," Jiho continued. "They are not the only ones who have had these crystals. I can see memories of other beings, other species that were chosen to carry these devices. But most of those memories feel sad somehow, like something bad happened to those species." Before Yuna could ask more questions, the ship's communication system crackled to life. "Dr. Park, Dr. Kim, please report to the bridge immediately," came the voice of Captain Hyunwoo Kang. They made their way through the narrow corridors of the military vessel to the bridge. Captain Kang was standing in front of a large display screen, his face grim with concern. "We have a problem," he said without greeting them. "About an hour ago, every radio telescope on Earth started receiving the same signal. It is being broadcast on every frequency simultaneously." "What kind of signal?" Yuna asked. "See for yourself," Captain Kang replied, activating the display. The screen filled with symbols that looked exactly like the ones Jiho had been seeing in his visions. Below the alien text, a translation appeared in multiple Earth languages. Greetings. To the humans of the third planet. We are the Kavari Collective. One of your kind now carries our species evaluator. We have been observing your expansion into space. The time has come for judgment. We will arrive at your world in 7 of your days to begin the evaluation process. Do not attempt to harm or remove the evaluator device. Doing so will result in immediate failure of your species assessment. The bridge fell silent. Captain Kang looked at Jiho with a mixture of awe and fear. Dr. Park, I think you need to explain what exactly is attached to your hand. Jiho held up his crystalline-covered hand. I wish I knew everything, Captain. But from what I can understand from the visions, this device is meant to study me, to study all of humanity through me. Study us for what purpose? Captain Kang demanded. 2. Decide if we are worthy of joining their galactic community, or if we should be contained to our own solar system forever. The journey back to Earth passed quickly after that. When they arrived, Jiho was immediately transported to the United Colonies Council headquarters in Geneva. The massive building was buzzing with activity as world leaders, scientists, and military officials tried to understand what was happening. General Minho Lee, head of the Colonial Defense Forces, was the first to greet them in the main conference room. He was a tall, serious man with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in every detail. Dr. Park, he said, shaking Jiho's left hand while staring at the crystalline covering on his right. We need to get that thing off of you immediately. I do not think that is possible, General, Jiho replied. And the alien message said that removing it would cause us to fail their evaluation. We do not negotiate with threats, General Lee said firmly. Our scientists are already working on ways to remove the device safely. Ambassador Suman Cho, an elegant woman in her 50s who served as Earth's chief diplomat, stepped forward. General Lee, perhaps we should consider a more careful approach. This could be an opportunity for peaceful first contact with an alien civilization. Peaceful. General Lee scoffed. They are threatening to imprison our entire species if we do not pass their test. That does not sound peaceful to me. As they argued, Jiho felt the crystal on his hand grow warm. Suddenly, his vision filled with new images. He saw vast fleets of alien ships. He saw planets surrounded by energy barriers that prevented any ships from leaving. He saw species that had failed the evaluation, trapped forever in their home systems. General, Ambassador, Jiho interrupted. I am seeing what happens to species that fail the evaluation. They are not destroyed, but they are contained. Energy barriers are placed around their star systems. They can never travel to other worlds again. How many species have failed? Ambassador Cho asked. Jiho concentrated on the visions flowing through his mind. Most of them. Out of hundreds of species that have been evaluated, only about 20 have been allowed to join the Kavari Collective. What determines who passes and who fails? General Lee asked, his aggressive tone softening with concern. I am not sure yet, but the crystal is showing me memories of the last species that was evaluated. They were called the Rillans. They were very advanced, much more advanced than humans. But they failed because when faced with difficult choices, they always chose to benefit themselves rather than help others. Ambassador Cho nodded thoughtfully. So this evaluation is not about technology or military power. It is about character. It seems that way, Jiho agreed. The crystal is not just studying me. Through me, it is studying all of humanity, how we react to crisis, how we treat each other, whether we can be trusted with the responsibility of traveling between worlds. General Lee crossed his arms. So what happens now? Do we just wait for these aliens to arrive and judge us? Jiho looked out the window at the city below, where millions of people were going about their daily lives, unaware that their future among the stars was about to be decided. I think the evaluation has already begun, he said quietly. And I think I am about to be tested in ways I cannot imagine. The testing began without warning. Jiho was eating breakfast in his temporary quarters at the United Colonies Council building when the crystal on his hand suddenly blazed with bright light. The world around him dissolved like smoke, and when his vision cleared, he was standing in a completely different place. He found himself in the cramped corridors of a space station. Red emergency lights flashed overhead, and an automated voice kept repeating the same message. Life support failure. In sectors 7 through 12. All personnel evacuate immediately. Where am I? Jiho said aloud, but he somehow already knew the answer. This was Station Hanul, a mining platform in the asteroid belt. He had read about it in the colonial reports. 300 people worked here, extracting precious metals from the floating rocks of space. A woman in a maintenance uniform ran past him, then stopped and turned back. Hey, you should not be here. This section is being evacuated. The air recycling system failed an hour ago. We have maybe 6 hours of breathable air left. I am Dr. Jiho Park, he said, though he was not sure why that mattered. What can I do to help? The woman, whose name tag read Engineer Suman Lee, stared at him strangely. You just appeared out of nowhere. How did you get here? There are no ships scheduled to arrive. Jiho looked down at his crystalline hand. It was recording everything, analyzing every detail of what was happening. I think I am here to observe, to see how people react in a crisis. Over the next few hours, Jiho watched as the station's crew worked together to solve their life support problem. He saw Engineer Suman Lee volunteer to stay behind in the dangerous sections to manually restart the air recyclers. He watched as Dr. Kyung Nam gave up his spot on the first evacuation shuttle so that a younger technician with a family could leave first. But what impressed him most was what happened when they discovered that the evacuation shuttles could not carry everyone to safety. There were not enough seats for all 300 people. Station Commander Tae-hyun Park, a man with graying hair and tired eyes, gathered everyone in the main assembly hall. We have a problem, he announced. The evacuation ships can only take 250 people. 50 of us will have to wait for the second rescue mission. A murmur of fear ran through the crowd. Everyone knew that the second rescue mission might arrive too late. I will stay, Commander Park said immediately. As the senior officer, it is my responsibility. No, said Engineer Lee, stepping forward. I caused this problem by not catching the maintenance error earlier. I should be the one to stay. Soon, dozens of people were volunteering to remain behind. Parents insisted that younger people should go first. Older workers said they had lived full lives and could wait. Even some of the younger crew members volunteered, saying they were strong enough to survive longer on limited air. Jiho watched in amazement as the argument was not about who should stay, but about who deserved to go. In the end, they solved the problem by modifying the shuttles to carry more people, even though it made the journey more dangerous for everyone. As the last shuttle prepared to depart, Jiho felt the crystal transport him away again. This time, he found himself on a merchant vessel called the Arirang, which was under attack by pirates. Captain Dongmin Ryu was shouting orders from the bridge as the ship shook from weapon fire. All passengers to the emergency pods. Crew, prepare to abandon ship. But Jiho noticed something that surprised him. Even as they prepared to evacuate, the crew was not thinking about themselves. The ship's doctor, Haeun Kim, was making sure all the passengers got medical attention first. The engineering team was working to give the emergency pods extra power, even though staying to do so put them in greater danger. When the pirates finally boarded the ship, Jiho watched Captain Ryu negotiate for his crew's safety instead of trying to save the valuable cargo. Take whatever you want, he told the pirate leader. Just let my people go. The crystal transported Jiho one more time. Now he stood in a medical facility on New Seoul Colony where a plague had broken out. The disease was not fatal, but it was highly contagious. and very painful. Dr. Yoonji Nam was the lead physician trying to contain the outbreak. She had been working for 18 hours straight without rest. When Ji-ho appeared in her laboratory, she barely looked up from her research. "Are you here to help or to ask questions?" she said tiredly. "Because I do not have time for questions right now." "I am here to observe," Ji-ho replied honestly. "Then observe this," Dr. Nam said, pointing to a window that looked out into the colony's main street. "Half my staff is sick with the plague. They should be in bed resting. Instead, they are here working to find a cure because they know other people are depending on them." Ji-ho looked through the window and saw exactly what she meant. Nurses who were clearly ill were still taking care of patients. Researchers who could barely stand were still running tests. Even some of the patients who were recovering were helping to care for those who were sicker than they were. "Why do they do it?" Ji-ho asked. Dr. Nam finally looked up at him. "Because that is what humans do. When others are in trouble, we help. Even when it costs us something. Even when it puts us at risk." She turned back to her work but then added, "I heard about what happened to you on Mars. That alien device on your hand. If it is judging us, I hope it sees this. I hope it understands that humans are not perfect, but we try to take care of each other." As Dr. Nam spoke, Ji-ho felt the crystal on his hand pulse with what he could only describe as approval. Through the device, he sensed a vast intelligence analyzing everything it had witnessed. The crystal was not just studying him anymore. It was studying all of humanity through these crisis situations. The light flashed again, and Ji-ho found himself back in his quarters at the United Colonies Council building. Yuna was sitting beside his bed, looking worried. "You have been unconscious for 6 hours," she said. "What happened?" Ji-ho sat up slowly, his mind still processing everything he had experienced. "I think I just took the first part of humanity's test, and I think we might actually have a chance of passing." The next morning, Ji-ho woke to find himself somewhere completely different. He was no longer in his room at the United Colonies Council building. Instead, he stood in a vast chamber made of the same crystalline material as the device on his hand. The walls curved upward and disappeared into darkness above, and the floor beneath his feet glowed with soft patterns of light. "Welcome, human," said a voice behind him. Ji-ho turned to see a being unlike anything he had ever imagined. It was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to be made of liquid silver. Its face had features that were almost human, but not quite. Where its eyes should be, there were 2 pools of deep blue light, the same color as his crystal device. "I am Archon Kale of the Kavari Collective," the being said. Its voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am one of the evaluators assigned to judge your species." "Where am I?" Ji-ho asked, looking around the strange chamber. "You are aboard one of our probe ships, currently hidden behind your moon. We brought you here so you could understand the full weight of what is happening to your people." Archon Kale gestured to the walls around them. Suddenly, the crystalline surfaces came alive with images and sounds. Ji-ho saw hundreds of different worlds, each populated by beings that looked nothing like humans or Kavari. "These are the species we have evaluated over the past 10,000 years, Kyle explained. "Some passed our tests. Most did not." "What happens to the ones that fail?" "They are contained within their home systems. Energy barriers prevent them from traveling to other worlds. They can live their lives, but they cannot spread their influence beyond their own planets." Ji-ho watched as the images showed world after world, surrounded by shimmering barriers of light. On those planets, civilizations continued to exist, but they were trapped forever in their own small corner of space. "Why do you do this?" Ji-ho asked. "Because the galaxy is a dangerous place," Kale replied. Species that cannot control their aggressive instincts, that cannot put the greater good above their own interests, become threats to everyone else. We learned this lesson ourselves, long ago. The walls showed new images now. Jiho saw the Kavari, homeworld as it had been thousands of years ago. The planet was torn apart by wars between different groups of Kavari. Cities burned, oceans boiled, and the sky was filled with weapons of terrible power. We nearly destroyed ourselves, Kale said sadly. We were saved only when another species, now extinct, forced us to confront our nature. They gave us the same choice we now give to others: evolve or be contained. And you chose to evolve. Yes, we became the guardians of galactic peace. It is a responsibility we do not take lightly. Suddenly, another voice filled the chamber. This one was harsher, more aggressive than Kyle's musical tones. Kyle speaks of responsibility, but he is too soft, the voice said. A second Kavari appeared, this one with skin like polished black stone and eyes that glowed red instead of blue. I am Archon Vega. I believe your species should fail the evaluation. Why? Jiho asked, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. Because humans are chaos, Vega replied. Your history is filled with wars, environmental destruction, and cruelty toward your own kind. You have barely learned to live peacefully on one world, yet you dare to reach for the stars. Archon Kyle raised a hand. Vega, let him see the Rillans. First, he should understand what failure looks like. The walls changed again. Now Jiho saw a species that looked more like humans than the Kavari did. They had 4 arms instead of 2, and their skin was pale green, but their faces showed emotions he could recognize. The Rillans were the last species we evaluated before. Yours, Kale explained. They were more advanced than humans in every way. Their technology was incredible. Their cities were beautiful. Their art and music moved even us to wonder. But they failed, Jiho said, sensing the sadness in Kale's voice. Yes, they failed because when we tested them, they consistently chose to benefit themselves rather than help others. When faced with disasters, they saved the most valuable members of their society first. When given the choice between personal advancement and collective good, they always chose themselves. Jiho watched as the images showed Rillan rescue operations, where the rich were evacuated first, leaving the poor behind. He saw Rillan scientists hoarding discoveries that could help everyone, using them only for personal gain. He saw Rillan leaders making decisions based on what would give them more power, not what would help their people. They were not evil, Vega added. They were simply selfish. And selfishness, when combined with the power to travel between stars, becomes a threat to the entire galaxy. But humans are different, Jiho said, thinking of everything he had witnessed during his tests. When we face crisis, we help each other, even strangers, even former enemies. Archon Kyle nodded. That is what makes your evaluation so interesting. You are not more advanced than the Rillans were. Your technology is primitive compared to theirs, but your responses to crisis situations have been unexpected. Some of us are impressed, Vega admitted reluctantly. But impressive behavior during a few tests does not guarantee that you will remain cooperative when you have the power to conquer other worlds. Jiho felt the crystal on his hand pulse with energy. Through it, he could sense both Kavari evaluators studying him, trying to understand not just his thoughts, but his very nature. What happens now? He asked. Now we return you to your world, Kale said. In 2 days we will arrive at Earth for the final evaluation. Your entire species will be judged based on what we have learned through you and what we observed during our visit. And if we fail, then humanity will join the Rillans and all the others who could not pass our tests. You will have your solar system to call home, but you will never walk among the stars. As the chamber began to fade around him, Jiho heard Kale's voice one last time. Prepare your people, Jiho Park. The future of humanity rests on what happens in the next few days. 2 days later, the skies above Earth changed forever. Massive ships appeared without warning, hanging silently above every major city on the planet. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, made of the same crystalline material as Jiho's device, but shaped like giant flowers floating in the air. Jiho stood in the transformed United Nations Assembly Hall in New York. The familiar seats and speaking platform had been replaced by a circular chamber with walls that glowed with soft light. Representatives from every human colony had gathered here, along with world leaders, scientists, and ordinary people who had been chosen to speak for humanity. At the center of the room, 3 Kavari stood waiting. Jiho recognized Archon Kale and Archon Vega from his visit to their ship. The third was new to him, an ancient-looking Kavari with skin like white marble and eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. I am Archon Zara, the elder Kavari announced, her voice carrying authority that made everyone in the room stand straighter. I am the final judge in this evaluation. We have observed your species for many cycles. We have tested your representative. Now we will hear your defense. President Hana Lim of the United Earth Government stepped forward first. She was a small woman with gray hair and a steady voice that had guided humanity through many crises. Honored. Evaluators, she began. We know we are not perfect. Our history is filled with mistakes, conflicts, and failures. But we have learned from those mistakes. We have grown. Archon Vega's red eyes flashed. Your wars continued until just 50 years ago. Your planet still bears scars from environmental damage. How can you claim to have learned? Because we are. Here, President Lim replied simply. All of us, humans from Earth, Mars, the asteroid colonies, and the outer planets. We are no longer separate nations fighting each other. We are one people, working together to build a better future. The crystal on Jiho's hand began to glow. Suddenly, the walls of the chamber came alive with images from his experiences during the tests. Everyone in the room could see what he had. Witnessed on Station Hanul, aboard the Arirang, and at New Sol Colony. These are not the actions of a perfect species, Archon Kale said, studying the images. But they are the actions of a species that cares for its own. Not just our own, said a voice from the crowd. An elderly man stood up from his seat. Jiho recognized him as Taewoo Jung, a farmer from the agricultural colonies. I am nobody special, Taewoo said, his weathered hands shaking slightly as he spoke. I grow food on Europa Station. But when the storms damaged the crops on Ganymede Colony last year, every farmer in the system sent seeds and equipment to help them rebuild. We did not ask for payment. We did not ask if they were our friends. They needed help, so we helped. A young woman raised her hand next. I am teacher Ji-yeon Park from the education colonies. When the refugee ships arrived from the Civil War on Kepler 442b, we did not turn them away because they were different from us. We taught their children alongside our own. We learned their languages and their customs. Some of them are here today, part of our human family. More people began to stand and speak. Each one told a story of humans helping humans, even when it cost them something, even when there was no reward. Then, someone unexpected stepped forward. It was Seok-jin Han, a man with scars on his face and hands bound in restraints. 2 guards flanked him, but his eyes were clear and determined. I was a pirate, he said, causing murmurs of surprise throughout the chamber. I attacked merchant ships and stole cargo. I hurt people for money. Archon Vega leaned forward with interest. And yet, you are here. Why should we listen to someone who preyed on his own species? Because they forgave me, Seok-jin replied. When I was captured, I expected to be executed. Instead, they offered me a choice. I could spend my life in prison, or I could work to repair the damage I had done. They gave me a chance to become better than I was. He turned to look at the other humans in the chamber. Captain Dongmin Ryu was one of the people I attacked. His ship, the Ari Rang, was badly damaged in one of my raids. 3 of his crew members were injured. But when the rehabilitation program needed someone to teach former pirates about honest work, Captain Ryu volunteered. He taught me how to fix the same ships I used to destroy. Captain Ryu stood up from his seat. Seokjin Han is a better man now than many people who never made his mistakes. Humans are not defined by our worst moments. We are defined by our ability to grow beyond them. The crystal on Jiho's hand was pulsing steadily now, recording every word, every gesture, every emotion in the room. Through it, he could sense the 3 Kavari evaluators discussing what they were witnessing. Archon Zara spoke for the first time since her introduction. We have seen species that claim to be peaceful while they prepare for war. We have seen species that help their own people while destroying others. What proof do you offer that humans will remain cooperative when you have the power to dominate other worlds? The chamber fell silent. This was the question that would determine humanity's future. Finally, a small voice spoke from the back of the room. Because that is not who we are. Everyone turned to see a young girl, no more than 12 years old, standing beside her parents. Her name tag read Min Seo Kim, student representative. I am sorry, she said, suddenly shy as all eyes turned to her. But I have been listening to everything, and I do not understand why this is even a question. Archon Zara gestured for her to continue. Explain, young human. Minseo took a deep breath. In school, we learn about the old days when humans fought each other. But we also learn that even during the worst wars, there were always humans helping other humans. Doctors who treated enemy soldiers. Soldiers who shared food with hungry children. People who hid their neighbors from bad governments. She looked directly at the 3 Kavari judges. Even when we were at our worst, we were still trying to be better. Now we have gotten better. Why would we become worse just because we can? Travel to new worlds? Her simple words seemed to carry more weight than all the speeches that had come before. The crystal on Jiho's hand blazed with light, and he felt the Kavari evaluator's surprise and wonder flowing through the connection. The evaluation is complete, Archon Zara announced. We will deliberate and return with our judgment. As the 3 Kavari disappeared in flashes of light. Jiho looked around the chamber at the faces of his fellow humans. They had said everything they could say. Now they could only wait to learn whether humanity would be allowed to walk among the stars, or remain forever trapped in their own solar system. The wait lasted only 3 hours, but it felt like 3 years. Jiho sat in the transformed assembly hall with the other human representatives, watching the crystal on his hand for any sign of what the Kavari were deciding. The device remained silent, its surface showing only the slowly swirling patterns that had become familiar to him over the past weeks. When the 3 Archons finally returned, their expressions were unreadable. They materialized in the center of the chamber in flashes of crystalline light, their alien faces giving no hint of humanity's fate. Archon Zara stepped forward, her ancient eyes scanning the gathered humans. We have reached a decision regarding the human species. The silence in the chamber was complete. Jiho could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. Your species presents us with an unusual situation, Zara continued. You are technologically primitive compared to most species we evaluate. Your history contains violence and destruction. You have damaged your own world and fought wars that nearly destroyed your civilization. Jiho felt his heart sinking. This sounded like the beginning of a rejection. However, Zara said, and that single word changed everything. In all our years of evaluation, We have never encountered a species that consistently chooses cooperation over competition when faced with genuine crisis. Your response to danger is not to save yourselves first, but to save others. This is remarkable. Archon. Kale stepped forward next. The Rillans were more advanced than you in every measurable way. Their cities were more beautiful, their technology more sophisticated, their art more refined. But when tested, they failed because they could not extend their protective instincts beyond their immediate family groups. Humans do something extraordinary, Archon Vega added, his red eyes no longer hostile but curious. You treat strangers as if they were family. You help people you have never met. You forgive enemies and turn them into allies. This is rare in the galaxy. Archon Zara raised her hand, and the chamber fell silent again. The Kavari Collective has decided that humanity passes the evaluation. You will be welcomed into the galactic community. The chamber erupted in cheers and tears of relief. People hugged each other, laughed, and cried all at the same time. But Jiho noticed that the three Kavari were not finished speaking. However, Zara said, her voice cutting through the celebration, we offer you something that has never been offered to any species before. The room grew quiet again, sensing that something important was about to be said. We offer you the chance to become the next generation of evaluators, Zara announced. The Kavari Collective is old and tired. We have judged species for 10,000 years, but we have grown distant from the struggles that young civilizations face. We need judges who understand what it means to fail and recover, to fight and then choose peace. President Hana Lim stood up slowly. What exactly are you offering? We want humans to join us as partners in the evaluation process, Kale explained. You would help us judge the next species that seeks to join the galactic community. Your perspective, your understanding of growth and redemption would bring wisdom to our decisions. Archon Vega nodded. We have seen how you handle former enemies like the pirate Seokjin Han. We have watched you welcome refugees and teach your children to accept differences. These are the qualities that future evaluators will need. All eyes turned to Jiho as Zara addressed him directly. Dr. Jiho Park, you have carried our species evaluator for weeks now. It has become part of you, and you have become part of it. We offer you a choice. The device can be removed, and you can return to your normal life, or you can accept the role of humanity's first galactic evaluator. Jiho looked down at his crystalline hand. Over the weeks, he had grown used to the device, even comfortable with it. Through it, he had seen wonders beyond imagination and understood his place in something much larger than himself. What would that mean? He asked. It means you would travel the galaxy with us, Kale replied. When a new species is ready for evaluation, you would help us understand them. You would bring the human perspective to our judgments. And if I refuse, then the device will be removed, and humanity will join the Kavari Collective as a normal member species. You will have access to our technology and knowledge, but you will not be involved in the evaluation of other species. Jiho looked around, the chamber at the faces of his fellow humans. He saw hope, fear, and trust in their eyes. They were leaving this decision to him. Can I have time to think about it? Of course, Zara said, but know this. If you accept, you will not be alone. Other humans will join the evaluator program over time. Your species' voice will help shape the future of galactic civilization. That evening, Jiho walked alone on the roof of the United Nations building, looking up at the Kavari ships hanging silently in the night sky. Yuna found him there, sitting on a bench and staring at the stars. What are you thinking? She asked, sitting down beside him. I am thinking about that little girl, Minseo Kim, Jiho replied. She asked such a simple question. Why would humans become worse just because we can travel to new worlds? But it is not really a simple question, is it? What do you mean? I mean that someone needs to make sure we do not become worse. Someone needs to watch and guide and help other species ask the same questions about themselves. Yuna nodded. You have already decided. Have not you? Jiho smiled and held up his crystalline hand. The device pulsed gently, no longer alien but somehow part of who he was. Yes, I think I have. The next morning, Jiho stood before the 3 Kavari Archons and gave his answer. I accept the role of humanity's first galactic evaluator. 1 year later, Jiho stood on the bridge of a Kavari exploration vessel, watching a blue-green world grow larger on the main viewing screen. This planet was home to an aquatic species called the Yolon, who had just developed faster-than-light travel and were ready for evaluation. What do you think, Dr. Park? Archon Kale asked. Are you ready to help us understand these new beings? Jiho looked down at his hand, where the crystal device still rested. But now it felt different. It was no longer judging him. Instead, it was a tool that would help him judge others fairly and compassionately. Yes, he said, thinking of all the humans back on Earth who had taught him what it meant to extend trust and help to strangers. I am ready. As their ship approached the Yolon homeworld, Jiho wondered what challenges this new species would face, what tests they would need to pass. But he also knew that whatever happened, they would be judged not just by ancient beings who had forgotten what struggle felt like, but by representatives of a species that remembered what it meant to fail, to learn, and to become better. The crystal on his hand pulsed once, warmly, and Jiho smiled as he prepared to meet Earth's newest neighbors among the stars.